So to Brexit in a few minutes, let's start with Israel. We knew this election was very closely fought, and in the past hour the exit polls been released, and while these are only predictions, it suggests everyone's inclination was correct. This is proving to be very tight indeed. The projection is that the right-wing Likud party, led by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, has won 36 seats in the Knesset, in the Israeli parliament. The Blue and White Alliance, led by a former military chief, Benny Gantz, has won 37 seats. Now, if this poll is correct, neither of the major parties will have enough seats to form the new government, so they'll then have to open negotiations with smaller parties to form a coalition. Note as well, Labour projected just to pick up 8 seats. Well, Benny Gantz has responded to this. Here he is tweeting, and I'll translate this. He says, "We've won. In these elections, there's a clear winner and a clear loser. Bibi," as how he refers to Benjamin Netanyahu, "promised 40 mandates and lost big," he says. It may not surprise you to know Benjamin Netanyahu has a different view of this. He's also been claiming victory. He says the right bloc, the right-wing bloc in the Likud led, and we won a definitive victory. "I thank the citizens of Israel for the trust. I will start by assembling a right-wing government with our natural partners tonight." Well, the BBC's chief international correspondent, Lise Doucet, is in Jerusalem. So, Lise, we have a situation where both of them are saying they've done very well. How do you read it?
Rosa, I've never covered an election anywhere in the world where you have two people, the two main contenders, both saying within the first half hour of polls closing, we won. As you've been reporting, Benny Gantz was the first off the mark, congratulating the voters, thanks for the confidence expressed in him. And then Benjamin Netanyahu followed not long after. But there's a crucial difference. While Benny Gantz and Yair Lapid, his partner in politics, said we won, Benjamin Netanyahu said it was the right bloc which won. And that underlines a fundamental point of Israeli politics. No one party has ever governed on its own. No one party has ever got that magic 61 seats of the 100 seats in the Israeli parliament, the Knesset. It is all about coalition building. So in some ways, there's another voting day, or there's another election day, which has already started in earnest. In fact, it began before the polls, and that is taking these votes, once they're all counted, and translating that into a government. Let's get some quick analysis from our two expert panelists here. We have Annette Wilf, who was a former member of the Knesset for the Labour Party. She's now the co-author of a book on the War of Return about Palestinians. You're a prominent commentator and academic. We also have Noga Tarnopolsky, who's a journalist who's beavering away, can't believe some of these magic numbers are telling us about Israeli politics. What have you been distilling in the last hour, Noga?
Well, Netanyahu made some bets that seem to have worked out and others that seem not to. So, for example, his campaign of incitement and really openly racist accusations seems to have backfired, and it seems to have turned people off from voting, including what my colleague Anshel Pfeffer called the soft right, people who in general would vote right but aren't necessarily personally fanatic of Netanyahu. On the other hand, he took a big risk when he brokered a deal between 3 extremist right-wing parties who never had a chance to make it into Knesset, and that seems to have paid off. They have entered the Knesset, it would appear, according to the latest
exit polls. They have not.
They have.
Those extreme right-wing parties.
That's right. And they have already called for a law that would grant him immunity from the indictments that are coming up in July or August. So it's a mixed bag for him tonight. And that's interesting for a man who we normally in Israel consider absolutely dominant in the political arena.
Some of the analysts are already saying, thank you for your service, Benjamin Netanyahu. In other words, it's even though you may have won some of the seats tonight, it's time for you to move on. Is it really? Is it too early to say that?
Well, it's too early to say it definitively, but it is important to say it generally, that tonight's results, as we see them right now, do not give Netanyahu the sort of unmistakable victory he hoped to get tonight. And that's an important statement.
Annette Wilf, you would agree?
Absolutely. In many ways, it does under certain scenarios, depending on the exact numbers we'll know tomorrow morning. It opens the path for the Israeli president to actually give the mandate to Benny Gantz to try to put together a coalition government. Certain parties that we used to call in as belonging to the right, such a party called Kulanu, is really a centrist party. So under certain conditions, it could go with Benny Gantz and not with Netanyahu's government. So
is that really in? Because people have been doing the numbers, and they generally the balance of opinion seems to be that Benjamin Netanyahu looks like he stands a better chance of forming a government, or do you think the numbers could switch if they think Benny Gantz is the person who will be tasked with?
Exactly. It is much more also psychological. There are certainly 5, 10, even 15 seats that if they get a sense that the tide is changing, they might switch sides. So right now they're called belonging to the right, but they've also been in the past in left-wing governments, or were willing to go to left-wing governments. So, and they might want to maximize their negotiating power. So it's not really clear that Netanyahu has the bloc as he speaks. It's not really a bloc. It's much more flimsy than that.
Stay with us. We're going to keep looking at these magic numbers. And of course, it's more than the arithmetic. They tell us about trends in Israeli politics, a country which has been shifting to the right and was expected to shift even more to the right in these elections. And it's all about the new Israeli parliament, the Knesset. Let's look what's up for grabs there. There's 120 seats in the parliament. And as we've been saying, the party with the highest number of seats will get that chance to form the new government. As we've been reporting, if the projections in the exit polls are correct, it will either be Benjamin Netanyahu's Likud party or the blue and white alliance of Benny Gantz and Yair Lapid, who will be given the opportunity, the chance to form that government. They are accounting now for about half of the seats. The remainder of the seats in that Knesset will go to some of the 41 other parties who took part in this election. That's a record number of parties at an Israeli election, and that is reflecting the ideological, ethnic and religious diversity of Israeli society. In some minds, that actually reflects the divisions. As we've been underlining time and again, forming a government in Israel is no easy task. Never in Israeli history has a single party ever governed alone. No one has said that important number of 61 seats in the Knesset that it takes to form a government on its own. So there has to be horse trading. It has to be coalition building, and that started even before Israelis went to the polls today. That was starting with party leaders talking to parties right along the ideological spectrum, saying, if I give you this, I will give you that. And tonight, that process is intensifying. Mitchell Barak is joining us again. We still have Inat Welf, who's the former member of the Israeli Knesset. You know what these nights are like, and you've got the smile of a pollster, Mitchell Barak. You know the numbers game.
Well, I know the numbers game, and the first thing I'm going to say about the numbers, and I don't remember this happening in a very long time. Maybe Inat can remember with us, but what seems to be the two top parties, Blue and White and Likud, have enough seats to actually form a government themselves. I don't remember that happening for many decades.
In what sense that? But they don't have the 61.
They together, 33 and 37. Oh. They can have a government, and they could bring in another smaller party. They could have a very strong government. So I don't remember. That's the old days of Labor and Likud when they would get enough seats and they could actually do it. So this is a significant shift, and part of that is the third largest party of what they're predicting is only 7 seats. So there seems to be...
Which is the Shas, the religious party?
The Shas, United Torah Judaism, they're all about 6 or 7.
And Labor?
Labor,
yes,
exactly.
has 5. But okay, let's see. It has been discussed, and a little bit more discussion as the polls were closing, that in private there has been discussion of what would be called a national unity government. No one discussed it openly, perhaps because they saw it as it would ruin their chances at the polls. Is it possible, Mr. Barak, that Benny Gantz and Benjamin Netanyahu, Benny Gantz, of course, was the army chief during Benjamin Netanyahu's time as prime minister, so they have worked together before?
I would say it's only possible at this point if Netanyahu is leading it and forming the government. I don't see Gantz I don't see Netanyahu going into a government being led by Benny Gantz. That is going to be an issue. And along the lines of what Einat said, Netanyahu doesn't, when we talked about momentum and they have to see if the tide is changing, Netanyahu does not look like a winner right now. I don't want to say he looks like a loser because he's gotten a lot of seats. 33 or whatever he has, 34, 35 is a lot. It's definitely very significant and very impressive. But he looks like he's gasping for air. And when that happens and Gantz looks like he's full of air and full of vigor and kind of has the wind in his back, a lot of parties are going to see that. So that's really significant. The question is going to be also, as we discussed before, if Netanyahu does not get the mandate, then it's not clear that he's going to be around heading the Likud for a long time, and that certainly leaves an opportunity for the Likud together, either leaderless or with a temporary leader while they elect a new leader, can go in. You have two parties that can sit down without all of the noise, without all of the horse trading, and say, the country needs us now, especially if we don't have the leader that we've had for the past decade. We need to all do this together. Anything is possible here, but those numbers are really, really important because they can close it.
And do you think, Einat Wilf, when the numbers of the coalition become clearer, it will still be a shift to the right? The Labour Party, Meretz, they still seem to be in the Knesset, smaller number of seats than before, but they're still there. Would they want to join a government? Not with Benjamin Netanyahu, perhaps with Benny Gantz?
They would very much like to join a government with Benny Gantz. But it's important to say there's always a desire to tell a story of Israel shifting to the right, whereas literally every election for decades now has seen Israel evenly split between left and right. And it's really about the margins and how coalitions are created. And the same thing is happening now. Blue and White is channeling what used to be the old Labour Party, together with the old Labour Party and Meretz. They have over 45 seats. That was always the case. It's a very significant bloc. It's just that people now saw in Blue and White a real chance to have a different prime minister, and therefore even voters of Meretz and Labour flocked to Blue and White in order to have a chance at unseating Netanyahu.
Stay with us, Einat Wilf, and also Mitchell Barak. We're just going to, for the moment, pause and think about what the people who didn't vote in these elections, but whose fate very much depends on the outcome of these elections, the Palestinians, will be watching also these results coming in. We can cross to Ramallah in the West Bank to speak to the veteran politician, Mustafa Barghouti. Mustafa, we've been emphasizing that these are just projections. We don't know for sure who will be asked to form the next government in Israel, but what are your initial reactions?
We're not surprised, actually, and I don't think this has been elections with a competition between left and right. On the contrary, I think both big parties were both rights. I mean, this is a competition between right and right wing. And if there is something important to mention about these elections, it is probably indicating the death of the so-called peace camp in Israel. If you count the number of people who were elected that would support two-state solution, the number would not exceed 18 members only out of 120, and most of them are Palestinian Arabs who are Israeli citizens. So in reality, this is a very serious shift to not only to the right, but actually to racism, to a system of apartheid. All these parties want to keep occupation. None of them is ready to accept a two-state solution. None of them is ready to divide Jerusalem and accept that Palestinians also can have a capital there. And none of them is ready to stop the settlement activities that are killing the possibility of two-state solution. That is the reality, and Mr. Netanyahu was very blunt about it.
Yes, but there are members, excuse me for interrupting, of the Blue and White Alliance who have said that they're prepared. Benny Gantz has said he's prepared to make territorial concessions. Some of his political partners are now saying they support a two-state solution. So it's not so black and white, that there are, if it does go that way, and we're not sure it will, that there are people in this political landscape who do want to move forward on some kind of a process with the Palestinians.
No, I don't think so. Mr. Gantz was very clear. He said he will not change the Jewish national law, which says that Israel is only a country for Jewish people. He said he will not go back to 1967 borders. He said he will not give up Jerusalem, and he said that there is no Palestinian partner. Mr. Lapid said we should have peace with Arabs without Palestinians, and that is his partner. Ya'alon said he wants to bring 1 million. Ya'alon is also in the same Gantz camp, and Ya'alon said he wants to bring 1 million more settlers to the West Bank. So I don't see a peace notion here. On the contrary, I think, unfortunately, Israel has decided to be an apartheid state, and the policies of these two major blocs are only directing at consolidating and keeping the occupation of Palestinian territories and the consolidation of a system of racial discrimination, which is a system of apartheid much worse than what prevailed in South Africa. We are very, very upset and very sorry that this has been the development, but these are the realities. And some statements here and there don't change these realities.
Mustafa Barghouti, thank you very much for joining us from Ramallah with your first reactions to what are the projections emerging from the 3 exit polls broadcast by 3 television channels here in Israel. We'll have to wait till the morning to get a clear idea. The votes will be counted through the night, so hour by hour we'll have a clearer sense of whether the exit polls showing that a narrow margin of victory for Benny Gantz, the main challenger to Benjamin Netanyahu, has indeed prevailed. And if so, does he still stand a chance, the best chance, of forming a government, given the new realignments, if you like, in the Israeli political landscape? We're going to keep an eye on all of these developments as the numbers keep coming in, telling us more about how Israelis have voted and how where Israel is going to be heading in the next, indeed in the years to come. I'll hand you back now to Roz Atkins in London.